It's funny how life can change with a single, seemingly insignificant decision. For me, it all started with a simple text message, a message from someone I never thought would become so important in my life. I'll never forget the way my heart raced when I saw his name on my phone. His name was Jake, and everything about him seemed perfect at first. Charming, handsome, and funny, with the kind of smile that could light up a room. But there's always a catch, isn't there? And what I didn't know then was that Jake would be the reason my relationship with Brian would fall apart. Brian and I had been together for almost 2 years. He was my first love, and I had always thought we had a solid relationship. We laughed together, we traveled together, we shared our dreams. But lately, something had felt off. The spark that once kept us burning was beginning to fade. It wasn't just the physical part of the relationship. Sure, Brian and I had our moments, but there was a growing sense of emotional distance between us that neither of us seemed to address. I didn't want to admit it, but I had started feeling unsatisfied, not just physically, but emotionally as well. Brian's work had been taking up more of his time, and when he was home, he was often distracted, lost in his own thoughts. I tried to brush it off, telling myself things would get better, that maybe it was just a phase. Then Jake came into the picture. It all began innocently enough. I met Jake through a mutual friend at a dinner party. He was different from Brian in so many ways, confident, spontaneous, and incredibly attentive. He wasn't shy about giving compliments, and every word he spoke seemed to make me feel like I was the only person in the room. At first, I brushed it off as harmless flirting. After all, I loved Brian, and I had no intention of cheating. But there was something magnetic about Jake that made me question my own feelings. The first time we really spoke, we were standing by the drinks table, both of us sipping on wine and talking about our favorite travel destinations. I'd never been someone who liked to talk about my personal life, but with Jake, it felt natural. We spoke for hours that night, laughing, exchanging stories, and finding common ground in ways that I hadn't felt with Brian in a long time. By the end of the night, Jake had gotten my number. I didn't think much of it, honestly. He was just being friendly. But then came the texts. Short messages at first, checking in to see how my day was going. Then came longer ones, more personal, more flirtatious. I tried to be cautious, reminding myself that I had a boyfriend. But with each message, I found myself looking forward to hearing from him. And soon, those innocent exchanges turned into deeper conversations. Jake knew how to make me feel special. He complimented me in ways that Brian hadn't in months, and that small attention felt good. Over time, I started to feel like I was living 2 lives. One with Brian, the life I had built, and one with Jake, this exciting and unpredictable new connection. I never meant for things to get as complicated as they did. One Friday night, I was at home with Brian. He had been distant all week, his mind clearly somewhere else. I could tell he wasn't fully present, and it hurt. We decided to watch a movie together, but as soon as I sat down next to him, he seemed distracted. We didn't even make it halfway through the movie before I could feel myself getting frustrated. It wasn't about the movie. It wasn't about the fact that he didn't want to talk. It was about the emptiness I felt when I was with him. I wanted more. That night, I texted Jake. I told myself it was just a distraction, a way to take my mind off things. But when his reply came, it was different. There was something seductive about the way he wrote. We started talking about our lives, our feelings, and before long I found myself confessing things to him that I had never said out loud. About how lonely I had been, how neglected I felt in my relationship with Brian. And Jake, sweet, understanding Jake, listened. He didn't judge. He understood. The next weekend, Brian and I were supposed to go out on a date night, but he canceled last minute. Work had come up, he said. I tried not to let it bother me, but I couldn't help it. I had been waiting all week for a night where we could just reconnect. But now it wasn't going to happen. Instead of staying at home and sulking, I did something I hadn't done in months. I texted Jake, asking if he wanted to meet for coffee. When we met up, there was an undeniable tension between us. We sat across from each other at a small cafe, talking about everything and nothing at the same time. He leaned in closer as the conversation shifted to more personal topics. There was something in the way he looked at me, something electric that made my pulse race. I had never felt this drawn to someone before. As we continued talking, the world around us seemed to fade away. Before I knew it, we were standing outside in the cool night air, the streetlights casting a soft glow on the pavement. Jake's hand brushed mine, sending a spark up my arm. I could feel my heart pounding, my breath quickening. It was as if the universe had conspired to bring us here, to this exact moment. "Are you sure about this?" he asked softly, his voice a mixture of uncertainty and desire. I looked up at him, my mind racing with thoughts I hadn't fully processed. But in that moment, I couldn't think about anything except the pull I felt toward him. "Yes," I whispered, the words slipping out before I could stop myself. And just like that, Jake kissed me. It was slow at first, tentative, as if we were both testing the waters. But then, it deepened. His lips moved against mine with a hunger I hadn't realized I'd been missing. It wasn't just physical, it was emotional too. It felt like I was finally being seen, really seen, in a way that I hadn't felt in months. We broke apart, both of us breathless, standing in the middle of the street with the weight of what had just happened sinking in. Jake looked at me with that same intensity in his eyes. "I've wanted this for a while," he said softly. I didn't know how to respond. All I knew was that something had changed. I was at a crossroads. I could go back to Brian, try to salvage what we had, or I could explore this new, unexpected connection with Jake. The next few days were a blur. I couldn't stop thinking about Jake. I didn't know what it meant or where it was headed, but I felt alive in a way I hadn't felt in so long. But with every moment that passed, the guilt grew. Brian didn't deserve this. He didn't deserve to be cheated on. But how could I ignore the connection I had with Jake? The tension between us was too powerful to dismiss. That weekend, Brian and I had another argument. This time, it wasn't about anything specific. It was about everything. The frustration, the distance, the lack of intimacy. It all came to a head. I couldn't keep pretending. I couldn't ignore what I felt for Jake, so I did something I never thought I would do. I told Brian everything. How I had been feeling, how I had kissed Jake, how I wasn't sure what I wanted anymore. The silence between us was deafening. I watched as Brian's face contorted with pain, his eyes brimming with tears. He loved me, I knew that. But love wasn't enough anymore. Not for me, not for us. And just like that, everything changed. I left Brian that night, knowing full well that I was walking away from something familiar, from something safe. But I couldn't deny the pull I felt toward Jake, toward the new chapter that was unfolding before me. As for Jake, we started seeing each other more often. It wasn't perfect, and it wasn't without its complications. But it was real. And that, at least for me, was enough. The infidelity, the guilt, it all came with consequences. But in the end, it was a choice I had to make. I had to face the reality that sometimes we fall out of love, and sometimes we make mistakes. But it's how we move forward that truly defines us.